Welcome to Porch Play Chats, sponsored by the American Association for the Child's Right to Play, or our shorter title, IPA USA. IPA USA is the USA affiliate of the International Play Association. And as part of our efforts to promote play, we've introduced Porch Play Chats, and there are almost 300 of them on our YouTube channel. You can find all of those Porch Play Chats that are free to you by going to ipausa.org. Up in the top right-hand corner, you can click and subscribe on our YouTube channel, and magically, every Monday morning, a new Porch Play Chat will appear in your feed. And you can also see all the other 200 plus that are on there. They go back to 2020, believe it or not. I'm Deb Lawrence, and I'm the co-president of IPA USA. And with me on the porch today is Dinah Awino. How are you? Good morning. Dina is in Kenya.
Good evening. Sorry.
Dina is in Kenya at the moment, and she is an environmental educator, an eco mentor, and a founder of the, I'm going to let you pronounce it, AkadiEco, is that correct?
Yes.
And Membership Ventures in Kenya. Her work, and Dina does an amazing amount of work in Kenya and has connections all over Kenya, which is a huge country. Her work focuses on nature-based connections. She knows the importance of being disconnected from your natural setting, from her own lived experience, and she empowers both child-led play and adult responsive play, and encouraging children's eco-agency and nurturing socio-ecological belonging, eco-empathy, and authentic environmental identity. And so her work is so environmentally rich that children are outside all the time, aren't they? It
Mhm.
feels like that in that country and in that area, that you have a lot of wonderful, beautiful spaces that are outside. So Dina's topic today is nature is essential, how play builds eco-empathy that lasts a lifetime. So exciting. So let's talk about that. Let us know a little bit more about what you're doing.
Mhm. Thank you, Deborah. It's amazing to have you host me here. It's actually good evening here, so it's about 7 p.m. Here in Kenya, and I'm very excited. And I'm a very humbled person. Um, I currently run an impact organization called AkadiEco. Initially, it was called AkadiEco, but I added the mentorship ventures because I realized I was also mentoring a lot of children, teenagers, and just children, and also um, young people from the age of 16 to 18. And I therefore embraced my title because I was also finding myself in green mentorship programs for young people. And
Mhm.
I've walked around in different organizations also. That means I've worked for example, Eco Schools Kenya, that is headed by my very good green mentor, Dr. Otieno, the founder of Eco Schools Kenya, an organization that is over 25 years plus. I've worked there as a programs assistant for a program for children. I've also worked at the Kenya Wildlife Services in the environmental education sector. There, I've also had a chance to guide children, especially from international schools, and they had a lot to teach me. And generally, I'm an environmental teacher. That is what I did for my bachelor's. And that is actually what opened me up to notice my own disconnection to nature. And later on, I connected that to how I grew up, actually. And I could resonate that to many children here in Kenya, given that we're a developing country that has a lot of limited ground for playful spaces for children. And of course, because of our population, a lot of parents have to live in very concrete plots that don't allow space. And that really connected with my story because I grew up in such an environment, and I could immediately see that when I was an adult and how it reflected my own environmental identity, especially as an environmentalist. Thank you. I'll take it back to you, Deb.
Okay, so can you talk to us a little bit about the work that you're doing with both the older population, the 16 to 18-year-olds, as
Mm-hmm.
well as with the young children to get them more in touch with the
Mm-hmm.
environment in Kenya?
Mm-hmm. So I do a program called Pendo Mazingira. It is Swahili, but in English it is Love Nature. And this was inspired partly by my upbringing, also by my, of course, environmental teaching background, which of course I practice from a non-formal and informal angle, and not very much from a formal angle. So I didn't teach in a school as an environmental teacher, but I taught in non-formal centers, like I mentioned, the Nairobi Orphanage and others. So that is actually how I started what I was doing, but it was not very organized. It was not in an organization or something,
Mhm.
but it was always calling out to me in many ways, like I was being invited into teen camps in Kenya. For example, there was one in Nairobi sometime in 2022. And I was invited by a very good friend called Masito, and she trusted me. She told me, Dina, you have to help these kids learn about nature. But she wanted me to bring in my angle of ecological values through the faith-based. So it was a faith-based organization, but they wanted me to teach kids about nature from a godly perspective. And that is when I started deeply thinking because I was now being trusted by teenagers. Uh, some were actually 6 years old, and others were the highest was around 11. And that was not the only one. There was also another time I was invited to lead a very big group of children. And I was not even a mother then, I was still a young person. And I was tasked to help the children connect with trees. And it was quite interesting because I could see how children are very disconnected. They took it as a joke. Some of them are very disconnected at the entire time when we were trying to do a planting program. And most of the time I've worked for faith-based organizations, but I've also worked under Eco Schools Kenya, where we used to go to schools and do all these Eco Schools programs, and that way I would also connect with the kids. But let me go back to Pendo Mazingira, which is my program.
Mhm.
It has 8 elements. I'm going to say it in Swahili and English. So there's love water, which is Pendo Maji. There's love air, which is Pendo Hewa. There's
Mhm.
love sky, which is Pendo Anga. There's love Ardhi, which is love land. There's love Rasilmali Asili, which is love natural resources. There's love um, there's love mimea, pendo mimea, which is love plants. Then there's pendo miti, which is love trees. And
Mhm.
under the umbrella, pendo mazingira. I often use eco connection cards to help uh, uh, children. And of course, having a background of environmental education allows me to understand how to also incorporate the Montessori way of teaching children how to connect with themselves and nature, and also using the multi-intelligence theory,
Mhm.
where we use the different ways. Some kids are musical, um, some kids are interpersonal, interrelational. Some kids are actually naturalists. Recently, I was actually asked to help girls. So there was a program that just wanted me to reach out to girls and help them find their environmental agency in a very playful way. That is
Mhm.
also where I try to help children or girls in this case find their own stories, go back to how their past was. I have an advantage because I'm a wellness certified facilitator, particularly for children. It's called RAP. I'm a RAP facilitator. It also helps me to find ways to bridge hope, support, um, and healing, and find uh, those little shattered hopelessness and disconnections, that's how I call it, into this. For children very young, I just allow them to, of course, in cooperation with their teachers, to connect with these elements when they're playing. In schools, I try to actually encourage the teachers to introduce these elements in different ways. These elements
Mhm.
are very passionate to me because it is actually what I found out when I was doing my master's thesis, that actually we are trying to solve a problem at the foundation. We're trying to solve a problem now. Of course, it's a climate crisis era, but we're trying to solve a problem among industries, organizations, adults, that was actually a foundational problem. The
Mhm.
children they grew up into were disconnected from these elements. And that's why it's so difficult to have these people, because people are the ones who run these organizations, people are the ones who meet this. So it's very difficult to actually change that. That's why we have to use penalties and compliance and very harsh threats. But instead, I try to bring this to the children, especially because I realize that that is where they need it most. And lastly, what I'd say is I do have my own stories that actually led me here, and me growing up, for example, in a plot. I grew up in a plot for 15 years when I was growing up. And then I moved to
Uh-oh, hopefully. Okay, Dina, we lost you for a second. Maybe you can come back. Looks like the internet connection may have stopped for a second. Oop. Let's see if she can come back because her story is so amazing. And in the United States, we're in a similar sort of situation, even though we're a much more resource-rich country. Oh, there you are. But what we've done in the United States is created forest schools and nature schools, right? To give children that ability to connect with nature and be able to respect nature and to love nature and to see all those natural resources that we have. So, Dina, I was just talking, you're muted, I think. I was just talking about how in the US, we have had a disconnect with young children and adults who were not, when I grew up, I was outside all the time, but I'm old. And so then children were not able to be outside as much or to explore as freely as I was able to when I was a child. And so what we found is a similar situation in the United States where we needed to start with children and help them see the beauty and the connection with nature. And so we, believe it or not, even in a resource rich country, have had the same issues. And so I think you're approaching your program very similarly to us so that you're able to get the children to understand and love and see the beauty in those elements that surround them. And so I think that's really great. So you're back with me? So do you want to keep going, but you're muted? Can you put your microphone back on? There you go.
Mhm. Sorry, something happened there. Um,
And so you were
Yes.
talking about how you working with
Mhm,
children to get them sort of reacclimated to the beauty of nature and the importance of being respectful with
mhm,
nature. And
mhm,
I was just sharing while we had some connection problems that we had a similar issue in the US,
mhm,
so that we're working with children and getting and increasing the number of forest and nature schools that children can go to instead of going to
mhm,
perhaps a formal child care center where they're inside a lot versus outside all day in any climate.
mhm.
And
Sure.
and and so
Mhm,
when you're working with children and you're introducing, and I love that you're using Howard Gardner's multiple intelligences, because that
mhm,
makes it
mhm,
meaningful to
mhm,
child that you're working with if you're able to sort of get their interest through whatever their um,
mhm,
intelligences are.
mhm, mhm,
Let's say you have a group of young children. So
mhm,
you need to define for me what your young children is. Um,
mhm,
so you have young children and you're sort of introducing their teachers to these elements, and you're trying to encourage the teachers to perhaps give the children some experience out in in the environment. How are you going about that?
mhm. Okay, so I've made this a very flexible program. It's not
Mhm.
tied to a particular age group, although I do have a preference for people from the ages of 9 years to 16. But sometimes I find myself having to connect with very young children. Like I do have a young child who's not even 5 years old. And
Oh.
for such, and that is why I bring in my sustainability approach as well, because we cannot achieve anything without partnerships and cooperation and collaboration. And so
Mhm.
I do collaborate with teachers, especially teachers who do have the ECD certificate. And
Mhm.
I just try to either bridge in through teacher leadership. I do help them know how to bring in Pendo to their work. Or I just try to talk to them because sometimes they just want to be talked to. Like I've done that for a few schools. Teachers have given me a platform. They've converged as teachers. These are very qualified teachers who have a degree, and some have a master's in teaching. And
Mhm.
and now in Kenya, environment is actually a compulsory subject. That
Oh,
means
good.
that we'll have more children taking up environmental courses, not like in my era when environmental courses were a minority. And that means that we have to find playful ways, creative ways of helping children connect with the environment, especially now when climate issues are now with us and
Mhm.
every discipline is now concerned with the issue of climate change, making it very necessary for the future generation to already have climate agency or resilience, as we call it in my space. And
Mhm.
for kids, you cannot push this agenda in a very strict, non-smiley, tough way. You have to be very creative and very playful. And that is why I also work with my friend, Dr. William Fila, who does eco-empathy games. And I happen to mobilize the games as well to support children um, who would want that kind of game. But I've also improvised my own innovative ways. I've talked about the eco-empathy circles, which also are encouraged by my friend William Fila. But for me, I do them differently with, of course, elements. I've also been doing some nature grounding work this is done for small children as well. And I always cooperate and collaborate with the teachers because I don't want to be the owner of Pendo Mazingira. I don't want it to stay with me. In fact, I want it to travel, to stay wherever it can stay. For some schools, they actually appreciate when you paint a game on the wall that they can always connect to. And I've been doing a lot differently. So first, this is very flexible. Secondly, I go with what's available. So I don't want to make this a very expensive play program. I do use what is available, including what the school has or what I already have that I can give them. And thirdly, sometimes it's just teacher leadership that is needed, and the rest they can do. For some people, they just want you to supply them with uh, curriculums. Like I remember there's a lady that I was working with, and she told me for her, she just wants storybooks and curriculums for her school, and the games I can tell her, and she will implement them. And
Mhm.
so I don't dictate. I don't dictate at all. For
Mhm.
some people, it's very non-formal, so it's not in a school center. It's either in a camp, or it's either in an already organized event for kids. So they just want you either for a week or for a day, to give them that gist. And so I always go with the flow. I also try to capacity build as much as possible so that it can grow within the people that have already had the first touch with me. So I do operate like that. I hope that answers the question.
It does, because I think the beauty of it is that you're giving them the tools, right?
Mm-hmm,
That
mm-hmm,
will
mm-hmm,
help them, like helping them understand some of the games that you've introduced that are playful
mm-hmm,
so that
mm-hmm.
the children are interested in participating and the teachers see the benefit of incorporating those into their curriculum. And I'm so glad that um, it is part of the country's like mandatory um, teachings, which also helps you
Mm-hmm,
with the into the schools or into those
mm-hmm,
classrooms or those
mm-hmm,
camps so that the
mm-hmm,
teachers say, well, oh, I don't know anything about this because I wasn't raised with like this. And so I do need some
mm-hmm.
tools to help me meet this. And you're not going in and saying, this is what you do, you're going in saying, what can I do? Right. So this is,
Mm-hmm.
how can I help you instead of this is what you need to do. So I think that's a
Yes.
beautiful approach
Mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm,
has people listen to you and want to go ahead and
mm-hmm,
implement those practices.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so can you
Um,
tell me how
mhm.
many, what the range is of how many programs that do you go back more than once, or is it once and done, or is I know it's based on what they want, but
Mm-hmm,
the scope, how many programs you typically work with on,
mm-hmm,
I don't know, uh in a school year, what if you have what we call a school year, which is typically
mm-hmm,
August through June, which is too long, but
mm-hmm,
what we do.
mm-hmm,
um, and so
mm-hmm,
how many programs have you touched with your curriculum?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, so first of all, this program is maturing. It has not stayed for so long. My organization has been there since 2022, but this particular program has not been there for so long. But last year alone, I'll talk about last year. Last year alone, the program was able to reach I won't mention the names of the schools, but I'll mention the programs.
Mm-hmm.
So, like for example, in Kenya, we do have some schools, some Montessori schools that only focus on environment. And
Mm.
they do take children who, instead of daycare, so these are
Mhm.
centers that instead of daycare, you can just pay so that your child can go and learn about nature. That's what they said. So I made a visit to one, and I was just trying to make an entry and tell them what I offer and I can offer them. I met a good person who was able to hear me out and walk me around. I noticed that indeed some of these centers do need more elements for kids
Mm-hmm.
to connect fully with nature, because I remember in that center, there were animals, there were plants, but plants here are like crops. They were teaching them farming, which is good.
Great.
But I just felt they needed a redefinition. So for them, I actually just spoke to the teachers, because
Mm-hmm.
already they said for their center they have to work with a teacher. So they prefer that I teach them, or I
A teacher.
pass on.
Mm-hmm.
I pass on the tool so that they teach it, because they're the ones who are qualified to actually handle the kids, and we understood each other. That is one. For a second program that I went to, so let me go back. For the first program, so I sit and wait. In case they do have questions, they can always reach out to me, and I would be happy to guide them. For a typical school, I've been to a few schools. Schools are very categorized here in Kenya. They're international schools, public schools, private schools. I've been to more public schools than private schools. Public schools are government. They have many children, and they're very affordable. That's where you'll find the most um, hardworking, but maybe children whose parents cannot very much afford an expensive school. You'll find them in public schools. And in such schools, of course, there are so many children, so many streams, so you cannot provide resources for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
So for such schools, I actually partner with their PE teachers and their games teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And they would want capacity building. So I don't take lead at all. By the way,
Mm-hmm.
I avoid that by all means.
Mm-hmm.
I lead from the back, because the training I got was to be an environmental community empowering developer, and um, not to lead without empowerment. So as much as possible, I empower them to do the work. I try to give them a script, not really a script, like a checklist of how they
Mm-hmm.
could introduce Pendo within recess or within um, the playful time. And of course, these teachers are sometimes disconnected from play itself.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have it in them sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to be sports coaches and teachers, but the playfulness is not that. So sometimes they don't have it, and I do understand. So sometimes I actually give them that prep, that prep talk that I know sometimes it's. So some of them, after that, I do have like a circle with them, a circle of truth, where we talk about our past, how was
Mm-hmm.
play for you, and we try to find a connection so that the next time they show up in recess, they're more playful than yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
That is two. Number three, faith-based. I'm telling you, faith-based centers do call me a lot. I think because I've mentored a lot of people on that side, and so maybe they find it easy to reach out, and it's okay. I'm always more than willing to reach out to faith-based. Faith-based do run camps. Most of them do run camps within August holidays, within December holidays, and sometimes within April. Of course, the school calendar has um, holidays, and these are some of the months that holidays are actually there. So they do call me within those 3 months, and I'm always more than willing and happy to show. Um, as I mentioned, I'm not very well capacity built in terms of providing a lot of resources for many children. So we
Mm-hmm.
try to collaborate with the faith-based teachers,
Mm-hmm.
who then can put some of the materials inside their workbook. So we'd rather produce one workbook where many contributors have contributed, and then we get one sponsor to just support that. And then they can learn that from there, and then we can play games. Of course, we do play games every day, and then I try to connect them to nature in different ways.
So Dina, what I'm hearing though is that really you go in to build the relationship first,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
you're there to meet the needs of that particular place and what their interest is. And so that's a
mm-hmm,
beautiful way of affecting change, because you're not going in and saying this is what you need to do, but you're going in and saying, what can I do to support you? So those teachers or those leaders are like, oh, she's a great resource. And that's why we need to have her back over and over again. So it's everything is relationships, right? So
mm-hmm,
it's relationships with children, it's relationships with the adults. And so that's,
mm-hmm,
I think, makes you very, very effective in the work that you do. And
mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm.
we're almost out of time. So is there any closing things you want to talk about that we haven't sort of covered so far?
I just wanted to say that I use an acronym called Miracle, and people can find more about it either in my website or in the white paper under the International Play Association, where we talk more about the program in detail. And you're right, we actually mingle. M stands for mingling with the people who need this. So you mingle first, and part of the ways we mingle is we just do eco-empathy visits that also include just watching how they play, how they connect. And then we find gaps. That's how so there's an acronym, and I'm sure we're all excited to know. So I'll just point you to my website or the IPA white paper that was drafted under AkadiEco. Thank you. Those are my final remarks. I have nothing more to add. Back to you,
Oh,
Deborah.
okay, Dina. So Dina's talking about the 2026 white paper, which will be released in November of 2026. So she has written a white paper about her program. So that will be a great way for you to deepen your understanding of the work that she's doing in Kenya. So, Dina, thank you so much for coming on. And
Thank you.
I'm sure we'll want to do more of these in the future, especially after the white paper comes out. So um, have a wonderful rest of your evening. Thank you so much. Stay right there while I
Thank
close this
you.
out. For those of you who'd like to learn more about IPA USA, please visit our website at ipausa.org. And until next time, keep on playing.